Please explain the phrase, think positive and it will be positive.
The Sikha from the Rebbe in Chelik Lamed Vav, Shmois, where the Rebbe explains it very clearly, and it's really a compilation of earlier texts, beginning with the Cheves Halavavis, and then of course the Alter Rebbe's Geras HaKedesh, Yud Aleph, and other places, which makes the same basic point. What I find interesting is how much the Rebbe was into Trachgut V'Zayin Gut. And I'll tell you why. Because Trachgut V'Zayin Gut is not an easy avodah, it's a very high inyan. You know, we know how realistic the Rebbe was about his generation, about us. For example, the Rebbe opposed fasting altogether. The Rebbe opposed bitterness, sadness, meridus altogether because he understood the nature of our generation. And there's something very pragmatic about the Rebbe in terms of how to deal with nisyonis and avedis and yetzer hara and doing the right thing, and you know, the idea that we don't no longer have Seid HaBirurim, where every person has particular sparks. Instead we say Chatefa, Acher, Chatefa, Ishti, and so on. So in so many ways, the Rebbe is so incredibly practical and aware of our limitations and giving us a avoida, or reapplying the traditions of Chassidus to us in a way which are realistic for our generations. On the other hand, the Rebbe says things to us that Chassidim didn't hear from the early Rabbeim that are higher than the things that the early Rabbeim said. For example, Lechatchila Ribber, Nimna Nimnois, where the Rebbe speaks Lechatchila Ribber. If you read the Sichos of the Rebbe on Lechatchila Ribber, either you don't take them seriously or they blow your mind. Lechatchila Ribber means a Rasha Merusha becoming a big tzaddik in 1 minute and remaining that way. There's something very, very, very transcendent about the Rebbe's philosophy of life. So on the one hand, there's something very realistic about the Rebbe. On the other hand, there's something over the top. And the two are interconnected, in my understanding. The being very, very realistic has to do with the fact that we're very small neshamis and very complicated gufas and so on. On the other hand, the Rebbe is giving us a koyach, or the Rebbe is saying that the lowliness of our gufas and the sensitivity of our neshamis allows us to taka jump over. It's not an orderly avodah, it's not such a pnimisdik avodah, but we are free to make these kinds of leaps. And one of the ultimate examples of this is trach gut v'zayin gut. Think good and it's going to be good. And I'll explain it to you. Trach gut v'zayin gut is the highest madrega of betachon. The highest. The Cheves Halavavis lists, I think, 9 levels of betachon. Maybe it's 11, but it's a bunch. But the way he developed betachon, I've given many classes on it. You can go to my website, InsideChassidus.org, and look up I have a section on life's lessons, where you have a section on Amun and Betachon. So over there you have, first of all, the Sikha. This Sikha, I taught at length. You have many classes on it. And I also have various individual classes on Amun and Betachon, where I bring in the Cheves Halavavis. I actually made copies of it, and the PDF should be there. We have all the different levels of Betachon. The first Betachon, says the Cheves Halavavis, is a child's trust in his mother's bosom. A newborn baby trusts that the mammary glands are going to produce milk. It's incredibly immediate. He has no trust in his mother, doesn't understand the mother, understands the breast. It's going to give him milk. As the child gets a little older, he relates not just to the actual source of the milk, but to the one cradling him while he's nursing his mother. And then, of course, his father. Betachon means trust. You make me safe. Because of you, I am not afraid. Betachon in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, means safety. And a sense of trust, sense of fearlessness. And the Cheves Halavavis journeys from one level of betachon to another. The highest levels of betachon deal with the hardships of life. For example, Kol ma da'ovid rachmana l'tav ovid, everything the Eibush does is good. Which doesn't mean everything the Eibush does is good in a way that I see that it's good. Kol ma da'ovid rachmana l'tav ovid means everything the Eibush does is good, whether I see it or I don't see it. I know a particular person who told us, me personally, they did not have the easiest life. And they once complained to the Rebbe about the hardships in their lives. And the Rebbe answered them, Kol ma da'ovid rachmana l'tav ovid. It didn't say Trachat v'zayin gut, it didn't say Gamzel l'tev. It says the Eibush knows what he's doing, although we don't. In other words, there's levels of betachon where you trust that the Eibishter knows and we don't know. The highest level of betachin, the absolutely highest level of betachin, is the madrega of Yosef HaTzadik, is the madrega of Nachum Ish Gamzu, it's the madrega of the biggest tzaddikim. That ein ra yered mamayil, everything is good, and everything is good, but teva nira v'anigla, right? Nachum Ish Gamzu used to say, Gamzu l'teva, this also is good. In Mamare Chasidus you have, V'leizochas haramashkim es Yosef v'yishkacheyu, which is a Pashik and Pashas Vayeshev. And over there also I have a class with the PDF on this sugya betach, that Yosef was punished for asking the haramashkim to help him get out of prison. So the Maimonim asked, Ayin Zayin and Peches, asked the question, aren't we supposed to make a Keli and Teva for the Eibishter's Nisim? Or in the Lashon that is often used in the world, you have to make a Shtadlos. Why is Yosef HaTzadik being punished for asking the Saramashkim to help him? It's a very normal and natural and Yiddish thing to do to make a kli for the bracha of the Meibishter. So the Maimonim answered that Yosef is not allowed to make a keli. Because Yosef has to believe that everything is coming directly from the Eibishter, and the Eibishter is good, but Teva Nira V'Niglin, an overt goodness. And making a Saramashkim a kli is called Orer HaGever Shiftach Ba'adam. It's the highest madrega betach. So the highest madrega betachin means I'm looking at the worst situation and not seeing a potential good. I'm not saying I believe that the Eibishter knows what he's doing. I'm looking at something positive. That's the madrega of Gamzu l'teva. That's really trachkut v'zayin. That's really what it means. Trachkut v'zayin means that if a person lives in a world where the Eibishter is everything, and that the Eibishter is good, and that the Eibishter's goodness is revealed. Those are three separate things, right? The Eibishter is everything, and the Eibishter is good, and the Eibishter's goodness is revealed. When you raise yourself to such a madrega, whatever situation you're in, you actually see goodness. Not you say it's bad and it's going to be good. It's good. And the Rebbe explains in that Sikh and Chelik Lamed Vav that when you raise your faith level, your trust level, to a point where you see only good in a bad situation, that upliftedness of self, that, as Abiel Khan called it once in a Fabrengen, a chosid's moifis, a miracle of a person, like the story with the Mechol der Alter, whose son was dying, and the Tzemach Tzedek told him, Trach gut v'zayin gut, and he did it, and his son recovered, and was Maidach Yamim V'shanim, like the Rebbe brings in the Maimer of Margel Bepuma de Rabbi Toshmem Vav, where the Rebbe discussed this at length. The positive thinking creates a change. So Trach gut v'zayin gut is something that the Rebbe demanded of us. Spoke about it many times. And I know Shluchim, who the Rebbe would tell them consistently, Trach gut v'zayin gut. Trach gut v'zayin gut is the highest level of betachin. It's the betachin of Nachum Ish Gamzu, not of Rabbi Akiva, higher than Rabbi Akiva. It's the betachin of Yosef HaTzadik, not the Shvatim, higher than the Shvatim. And the Rebbe demanded it of us. Don't you find that interesting? And the pshat is that the Rebbe is saying in our generations, the heavier Avedas, the more burdensome Avedas, where you would say, for example, I'm going through a hardship because Hashem is punishing me. I'm going through a hardship because Hashem is teaching me a lesson. This would kill us, it would destroy us. So instead, we say the Eibishter is good and we see only goodness. So on the one hand, what the Rebbe is doing is very pragmatic and very practical. Don't get caught up in the heaviness of the heavenly messages. To the contrary, see only goodness. But at the same time, what the Rebbe is replacing it with is not easier, it's harder, in a way. But the nekuda that makes it make sense is that it's positive. The Rebbe's basic message to our generation is always be positive, because negativity is going to destroy us, and positiveness will redeem us. And Trach gut v'zayin gut is so positive that you're literally thinking about the Eibishter's world the way the biggest tzaddikim thought about the Eibishter's world. Nachum Ish Gamzu, and Yosef HaTzadik, and Shimba Yechoy, and the Baal Shem Tov, where they saw lechatchila only good. And when a Yid, the Rebbe says we have a koyach for this, the Rebbe used to write to people, try me out, and see if it works. That if a person truly raises himself to such a madrege, the miracle the person creates in himself, to have this kind of trust, mitanemes, creates the miracle in the world. This is, in short, Trach gut v'zayin gut, but I did two things in this answer. I explained it, and I also tried to illustrate what's so interesting and complex and controversial about it in the way that Rebbe teaches it to us.